Hi, Passionators. I'm back again, and I have something else I want to talk about with you. The conviction addiction. This is one that comes up frequently when people ask me about commitment phobia. Personally, I have a different sort of view on commitment phobia than what I've been hearing. So come on in and we can talk a little bit more about it. I found a different place to land this time. As much as I don't like cold weather, and I've made no secret about that, today is a pretty nice day here, and I'm surrounded by some of nature's beauty. So I thought I'd just park here for a minute and talk to you guys. So I'm just going to give you a little glimpse of what's around me, and then I'll be right back. See all the pretty flowers? Like, they go on forever and ever and ever, and the trees are in bloom. So it's actually kind of nice to be downtown in Chicago right now. And over here is one of our featured attractions. That big face that you see back there is actually part of a waterfall that people come to splash around in. So yeah, I found this pretty place to plant myself while I talk to you guys for a little while. This whole addiction conviction, that's what the conviction addiction is, what I call it. A lot of times the biggest problem in anybody's relationship is the fact that they have an idea about what the relationship is supposed to be. And if the relationship actually deviates from that idea, they have to make a choice. They have to choose whether to make the most of the relationship as it actually is, or do they try to force it into the idea that they have about what it's supposed to be. So that's where manipulation comes in. That's where lying comes in. That's where assumptions come in. That's where everything that literally tears apart a relationship happens. People are more committed to their convictions than they are to their relationships. They're more interested in being right than they are in being in a relationship. What do I mean by that? I mean that they come into a relationship with ideas about what love is supposed to look like, how they're supposed to receive it, how they're expected to give it, and anytime it doesn't fit that mold, they flip out. They flip out and decide that the relationship is wrong, that the other person is wrong, that they must be in the wrong relationship, that anything outside of the way they see the relationship is wrong. And it can't ever be different. Different is not on the radar screen. It's right or it's wrong. And their way of seeing it is right, because they decided that they are going to hold love hostage to how they believe it's supposed to be. So if I'm going to have love in my life, it has to come to me this way. It has to look the way I expect it to look. It has to come to me in a way I'm comfortable receiving it. Otherwise, I'm going to shut it down one way or another. I'm going to lie, I'm going to hide, I'm going to cheat, I'm going to pretend, I'm going to shut down, gaslight, whatever. But I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that this thing fits what I'm comfortable with. Because if it makes me uncomfortable, then it's wrong. It's not different. It's wrong. And if it's wrong, then I'm right. And if I'm right, then I'm superior. And if they're wrong, then I'm sympathetic and superior. And for somebody who is looking for their sense of power and force and significance outside of themselves, that situation is a winning Powerball ticket in the emotional manipulation lottery. When people need to be in a toxic situation, they will be with somebody who is compatible with whatever their toxicity is. Somebody who needs to be in control will be with somebody who's easy to control. Somebody who needs to be right is going to be in a relationship with somebody who is easily wrong, who they feel superior to, who they feel smarter than, so they can out-talk them, they can out-logic them, they can out-think them. And every time they do that, it further cements the idea for them that they are superior. And they have to feel superior in order to feel significant. That is a huge red flag that a whole lot of people ignore when they're trying to make new relationships. Anybody who has to be right all the time is a problem. Anybody who has to make you wrong all the time is a problem. Anybody who will not allow you to say no without trying to change your mind is a problem. It's all the same dynamic. But that's a problem. That's a big red flag. You know, a lot of us are taught that way, especially in the marketplace. You know, if you're ever going to do anything, you have to make a sale. Sale being you have to convince somebody that what you have is what they want. That's a sale. So if they say no, that's not your cue to just pack up your stuff and walk away. That's your cue to go in and do everything that you can to change their mind. Might make your sales numbers look great, but in a relationship, that idea doesn't work. It is toxic to a relationship. It completely wipes out the possibility of partnership. There's no teamwork if somebody has to win. If your mate is always trying to win, you got a problem on your hands. It can be fixed, but it is a problem. And until it's recognized as a problem, it won't be fixed. Which leaves you with a different set of options. But that's another video. But right now, I'm talking about the conviction addiction. People absolutely get addicted to their convictions. What they believe is what's right. Period. And they are not open to any other way of seeing things besides the way that they've made themselves believe is the truth. When most people say to you that they want you to tell them the truth, what they're really saying to you is, I want to know that what you think is the same thing that I think. Truth really doesn't enter into the picture. They just want to know that what they believe is the truth. Too many of us have the habit of believing what we think without ever stopping to examine whether or not the belief is having a positive effect on how our lives are turning out. And whether it is or whether it isn't, are we willing to address it and change it where necessary? Are we willing to do something different? Are we willing to change what we think and accordingly change what we believe and ultimately change how we live our lives? Most people will not do that. And that is why relationships are stuck. Because people are addicted to their convictions. And anytime anything happens in their relationship that confirms their conviction, they literally get high from that. Stimulates the same area in the brain that is stimulated by most illicit drugs. Definitely by heroin and cocaine. That's how addictive it is. So without any drugs being an issue, they can get the same kind of high from the feeling that they're in control, from the feeling that they're superior, from the feeling that they're right. How do you know that's what you're dealing with? Maybe you're with somebody who is entertained or amused by your anger. They get off on the idea that they can push your buttons and make you lose control and watch you self-destruct. They find that entertaining. Or maybe you've been vulnerable enough with them to let them in on what your biggest fears are, and they are entertained by triggering those fears for you, by watching you be afraid. That's one way you know that you're in this kind of a toxic situation. And it is toxic. Make no mistake about it. Whether you're married to it or not, it's toxic. Hopefully, you're at a stage where it's early and you can recognize it for what it is and just get out the way. But if it's not, once you understand it for what it is, then you can deal with it in a way that doesn't tear you apart in the process. Because it doesn't have to. It doesn't define you unless you allow it to. You never put your definition in somebody else's mouth. The way other people see you, positive or negative, has nothing to do with the truth of who you actually are. And it has everything to do with how you accept it. Nobody can define you for you unless you allow them to. That's why it's so important for you to decide those things before you even try to get into a relationship. I used to make that mistake frequently. And when whoever I was with was upset with me, for whatever reason they were upset with me, if I felt like they didn't like me, then I didn't like me either. Whether I was married or not married. And I would try to find a way to make them right. I would try to figure out what it was that I did, what it was that I said, what it was about who I was that triggered that in them. I figured that had to be it. Because I had to be misunderstood. There's no way that they could actually believe I was deliberately trying to do anything to hurt them or upset them or make them feel badly about me in any way at all. So I took the responsibility for rewriting the way I communicated things. So I ended up repeating myself a lot. I would find ways to say the same thing over and over again. It's like, well, maybe if I do it this way, then I'll be understood for what I actually meant. But when people are addicted to their convictions, it doesn't matter what you do. Because they have already decided how they feel about you. They have already decided what their opinion is about whatever it is you're talking about. They've already decided it. That's why all that talking you're doing isn't changing anything. And it's only making things worse. It's absolutely making things worse. It's creating more damage that has to be dealt with. Because you're trying to change somebody's mind about you. You're trying to change the way somebody feels about you. You're trying to change the way they think about you. You're trying to change the way they behave toward you. And it isn't your job. Even if you're married to it, it isn't your job. Your job is to decide who you are and how you will be in any relationship. Your mate's job is to choose to accept that and honor that and adore and cherish and treasure it or not. And if they don't or if they won't, or if they're unwilling to, then they should be free to walk away without any headache, heartache on your part. Just let them go in love. Most people that you're attracted to aren't compatible with you anyway. Just let them go and move on, because you don't gain anything by hanging on to them. Too many people are in relationships right now where their only goal is to make each other miserable. People are paying each other back. Somebody did something and they got their feelings hurt, so now they owe them. And they're determined that that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to make them feel the same kind of pain that they caused them. Or they're going to punish them for whatever it was that they think they did to them. Or maybe they did do it. Who knows? Either way, they're on punishment. That's the only reason they're in the relationship. They're on punishment. They're actually addicted to the conviction that they're right, and now they have a right to make that person as miserable as they choose until they get tired. And that's the only reason they're in the relationship. That's the main thing that's holding them together, is that they are getting off on the idea that they are making their partner miserable. That is the glue that is holding their relationship together. How is that ever going to work long term? It isn't. And until we release our addiction to what we believe and understand that there are other people who see things differently, and some of those people are the people who are closest to us, until we decide that their viewpoint is as valid as ours, even if it's not the same, you'll be doing what I call 40 years around the mountain that should have taken 40 days to get around. Because it's an immovable object. Other people's opinions are immovable objects. As long as your purpose for being in a relationship is to change how somebody feels about you, to try to get them to love you the way you want them to love you, when that's the goal, you will be perpetually frustrated, because that only means that you're waiting for them to change. You're expecting them to change. And if you're expecting them to change, then you aren't in a relationship with who they are right now. You're not loving who they are. You're not loving the relationship you have. You're in love with your idea about what the relationship is supposed to be. You're committed to your conviction. And whatever it takes, that's what you are going to spend all your energy, all your time, and all your effort trying to make happen. Whether or not it's actually what's best for you, that part you haven't even considered. It's just comfortable for you. And you're determined to be comfortable no matter what. And I'm not knocking being comfortable. You should be able to trust the person who is closest to you. They should make your heart comfortable. You should have emotional safety with them that you don't have with anybody else in the world. But if you don't, it's not your job to try to change them into what you think that's supposed to look like. Because it isn't going to work, in case you haven't figured that out yet. And if you wonder whether I'm right or not, name me somebody who did it. I'll wait. Find me anybody who lied, manipulated, cheated, pretended their way into a lasting, loving, happy relationship. Doesn't work. Well, maybe if I hang on long enough, they'll change. Maybe if I love them enough, they'll change. Well, I've invested all this time now and I don't want to throw it all away. You've already thrown it away. You've already invested the time. You can't get the time back. Hanging on longer isn't going to redeem the time that you already invested. The only thing that will redeem the time is you choosing to make that time a life lesson for you that you can take forward into other relationships, into other areas of your life, into new connections with other people, or maybe even with that person. Rewrite that connection with that person. But trying to hang on to the same thing just because you've been there doesn't mean you're supposed to be there. Just because you've invested this time doesn't make it a good idea to keep investing more time. Because quiet as it's kept, most of that is your ego. Most of that is you don't want to walk away and then see them happy with somebody else. You don't want to walk away and see them be for somebody else what you've been trying to get them to be for you. That's your ego. And that's what's sinking you. And until you get over your ego, you will not make yourself available to the kind of love and intimacy and emotional safety and security that you say you want. You can't manipulate your way into it. You can't punish your way into it. You can't argue your way into it. You can't tantrum and fit and go off the deep end your way into it. That is not how this works. That is not how any of this works. You have to be honest. First with yourself. First with yourself. Did I say first with yourself? First with yourself about what you require. You have to know that going in. Because if you expect them to figure it out, that's an unfair burden to put on anybody. And nobody's going to be able to do it. And your relationship will be set up for failure before you even get it started. The good news is, it isn't too late to talk about it. If you're both willing to actually take a new approach to your relationship, the relationship can be changed. But if not, let it go. I am not that person who's going to be saying to you, hang on, you did all of this. It's been all this time. I'm not that person. You can make that call for yourself. You're going to do what you really want to do anyway. I'm not responsible for your life. I'm only responsible for mine. But I am sharing my point of view with you. And I am not that person. I am not the one that will have you staying just because you've been staying. Not her. Life is too short to make yourself and somebody else miserable. It's too short. And there are too many amazing things that you could do. Too many amazing people that you could meet. Too many phenomenal connections that you could make if you would just free yourself to do it. But you can't experience that kind of freedom, that kind of love, that kind of ecstasy, that kind of bliss when your purpose in life is bound up in a negative heart. When you look for ways to be unkind, when you seek out ways not to be generous, when you find ways to be negative, when you see something positive and you look for the negative in it and make it your business to do something negative with it, to say something negative about it, you can't possibly free yourself of the kind of love you say you actually want, if that's the way you're living your life. So, that's about it for right now. And if I think of something else, I'll be sure I come back again. Feel free to share as always. I am on a mission. I am absolutely on a mission to encourage real love lasting love, blissful love, the way I've seen it happen, the way I know it can happen, in spite of what the media would have you believe. It happens, and it happens every day, and it happens all around you. But you can't lie your way into it. You can't cheat your way into it. You can't hide your way into it. You can't pretend your way into it. But when you're ready to be honest, first with yourself. First with yourself. First with yourself. Then you have an opportunity to make it happen along with someone else who can actually partner with you, who can team up with you, and you can make it happen for yourselves. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back again soon. Have a great night. Bye-bye.